Hello, Indivisibles. Several of you have asked me for a recording of the presentation I did on building a movement for New Jersey's statewide Indivisible network. So here it is. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Erica Malinowski. I'm the co-president of SOMA Action, which is a grassroots progressive organization, and also a member of the Indivisible network. I am also a member of the Indivisible One New Jersey Steering Committee, which is our statewide network. So this video series is breaking down several of the key organizing concepts that I have found most useful in my work. And we're going to start off by simply diving into what is power. Because when we're trying to grow power, if we're going to do that effectively, we've got to know what power is. And there's a key misconception that really holds people back. And that key misconception is this. Most people think that power works as sort of a right side up triangle, that there's someone at the top, they give the orders, they tell people what to do, and power flows downhill. And it is the case that who is at the top does make change easier or harder. But it's important to recognize that power is actually very unstable. It is much more like the upside down triangle on the other side. It is something that is unstable and it's held up by key pillars of support that are made up of ordinary people. Gene Sharp, a famous scholar of anti-authoritarian movements, makes the following point, quote, by themselves, rulers cannot collect taxes, enforce repressive laws and regulations, keep trains running on time, manage ports, print money, or even milk a cow. People provide these services to the ruler through a variety of organizations and institutions. If the people stop providing these skills, the ruler cannot rule. And at the time that I'm recording this, we have some very obvious examples. There are a lot of ICE raids going on, and these are not raids that Trump can do on his own. There's one of him. He's fundamentally a coward. He's not going around and rounding people up individually. The only reason he's able to do what he's doing is that there are a significant number of ordinary Americans who are choosing to fill jobs for ICE and are choosing to implement the orders that they are given. If that was not the case, if there was any collective refusal to be hired, to continue doing jobs, or to carry out orders, that set of deportation simply could not happen. And so the idea behind the pillars of support is that where those pillars of support are in the community very much constrains what the people who are in positions of power and authority are able to do. If people collectively decide, you know what, we are going to support what's over here, well, the people at the top are kind of stuck. And to be clear, I don't mean support in the sense of, oh, I have this opinion, maybe I'll post about it on Facebook kind of support. I mean, I will intervene when this is violated kind of support. We are seeing, for example, community members where ICE raids a restaurant and the patrons and the community members show up and they're standing there in a large and hostile crowd to be like, no, you're not going to take our neighbors. And all of those things start to make it harder and harder and harder for the authoritarian to do what it is that they want to do. And so in this session, we're going to dig deeper into the power we have to move what ordinary Americans will and won't stand for, because that is the base of power that lets us do everything else, from persuading representatives to replacing them to providing for our community through directly helping out each other on the ground. So the key thing to realize is that power comes from relationships. And I'm going to use this definition of power, which is that power is asking someone to do something they would not otherwise have done and to have them do it. So you're going to someone, you're asking them for something, and this is the key piece that they would not otherwise have done, and having them do it. And to be clear, we are not talking about coercive power in this case. This definition does technically encompass that, but there are a couple of reasons we really want to avoid that. And that is that it backfires big time. People really, really, really don't like being coerced. They will stop as quickly as they can, and then they will work to undermine and undo whatever they were forced to do. And then the other piece also is just that how we treat others is the world that we create. And a world with more coercion isn't what I personally am trying to build as an activist. And people often fall into this trap where they're like, oh, I'm just going to do this like real quick, like the ends justify the means, I'll make up for it later. And the thing is that as we build our understanding that we actually are already powerful and that we actually have impact on the world as is, how we use the power that we have right now is how we are going to use any power that we get in the future. There is no point where people are suddenly like, oh, okay, I have enough. I guess I'll switch tactics now. What you practice now is what you're going to do in the future. So if you don't want to create a world where we're running around coercing each other and forcing everybody else to do stuff, then you have to attend to what you're doing right now. And when we're talking about power, what I really want you to focus on is persuading people to do things that even though they wouldn't have done that on their own, they're glad that you asked at the end of the day. And they'll run with it, they'll take initiative, they'll supply their own ideas and energy to help you advance your goals. And to take, for example, um, I have people who I recruit to be committee chairs for my organization. And oftentimes when I approach someone, they're like, oh, me be a committee chair? Like, wow, that feels intimidating. But then when they get in and I support them and all that kind of a thing, you look at it a few months later and they're like, wow, like I'm so glad I was asked. So it can be something that even feels intimidating at first, but after people say yes, they're like, yeah, this is great. And then they run with it. So we're going to start off, we'll end this video actually, start this series with an exercise, which is I just want you to think about what power do you have right now? So what are the things, who for starters, who can you go to that you can ask something of? And what kinds of things could you ask them to do that they would most likely say yes to? Because remember, this is our definition of power that we're working with. What can you ask someone of, ask them to do, and have them say yes? And this does not have to be politics related. It can be. So, like, who could you ask to do a phone call to the representative or something like that? But it can also be something that's not politics related. And I encourage you to think of that as well. Can you invite someone to come over for dinner and have them most likely say yes? Can you borrow tools? Can you have somebody come to a block party? Any of those things. Because we actually have an enormous amount of power that we don't recognize and that we can tap into, as we'll see later on in this series. So go ahead, take some time to think that over, and then I'll see you for the next video.